Hey guys, this is Trey with HGM. As pastors and leaders, we know the goal of everything we do is to help people who are far from God become fully devoted followers of Jesus. We know that Jesus commissioned us to make disciples of all people, but sometimes we have a hard time connecting those pieces in the context of a local church. Those of you who've been a part of HGM for a while, you're familiar with the HGM Wave model. 3 times a year at Easter, fall, and Christmas, where we become intentionally evangelistic and reaching unchurched people. But we also know that the hardest part of the wave is the backside. It's getting new people connected. But we know it's so important because on average, 6 to 10% of your guests will come back for a second date. And 25% of those will go on to date number 3, and only 35% of those will become a part of your church family. So getting that second and third date is so critical for growing our influence and helping people connect to Jesus. But then how do you get those people engaged in discipleship? And what about leadership development? We've heard from a number of you from across the country who are struggling putting all the pieces together. But the question remains, how do we help a first-time guest take the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step needed to not just get them connected, but into focused, intentional discipleship that flows into leadership development? Our HGM team has created a model that we think can help you think through this process. It's called the game plan. Hopefully your coach has given you this baseball diamond that will kind of serve as our guide in understanding kind of the game plan model of how do we help a first-time guest get connected to the church, then get connected to discipleship and leadership development. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the whiteboard, and we're just going to kind of talk through this. I'm going to give you a best practice from a local church that's having some real success with parts of this. But really, this model is really to get you thinking and to help you see how we help people take those next steps and what's needed to get them out of the batter's box and over to first base, or from first base to second base. So let's go to the whiteboard and just kind of look at it. So I know when I was pastoring, and again, what we've heard from a lot of you is sometimes we know about guest meals, and then we think about growth track and different things and that we might want to use, or maybe it's Sunday school classes and groups or freedom or different tools that we're using to help people move forward in their walk with Jesus and in their connection to the local church. But sometimes it's hard if we can't see how all those pieces relate to one another. So a couple of months ago, our team got together and we were talking about this challenge that many of you are facing. And so we just went back to the old baseball diamond. I mean, it gives us the perfect metaphor. Now, everything we're going to put on the board, and even what you have on your sheet that your coach has given you, a lot of these are suggestions. So you may use different terminology. You may call something different than what we're going to call it today. But the point of this and the point of this model is to give you a structure that can help you help people take the next step. So let's look at the board and kind of look at this baseball diamond. So you've got, we'll call this person Fred, all right? So Fred visits your church for the first time, and so Fred is in the batter's box. But we have to define what is first base. What's the next step that we want Fred to take in trying to help Fred get connected to the local church? And so for a lot of us, that may be a guest meal. Some of us call it pizza with the pastor. Some of us call it a guest party. It doesn't matter what you call it, but this connection event is something that we just don't do the Sunday after a big wave day like Easter or our Christmas service, but this is something that we do at least once a month, either the first Sunday of the month or maybe the last Sunday of the month, because it's a way of getting guests connected. We know that this is used to kind of introduce people to the church. It's to get them together. We have a pizza party for the kids, and our leaders are there, and they're just investing in relationships. The pastor usually stands up and shares a little bit about the vision of the church. But the main thing we do is we let people just share their stories around the table as we build relationships. And so first base is this connection event. It's the tool that we're using to get them back to that second date, back to the church. But here's the deal. If any of you play baseball, you understand that there's this thing called a baseline. And so what empowers us, or what helps Fred get out of the batter's box and get down the first base line? Well, it's our follow-up system. And you've heard about this in HGM. If you want to learn more about the follow-up system, go to hgmchurches.com to the resource page. There's videos there, there's models there, there's tools there to help you learn more about an effective follow-up system. So we're calling him Fred. That's right, his name's Fred. Fred visits our church. Maybe he comes the first Sunday of this January because it's a new year and he's a New Year's resolution person and he wants to try church again. So Fred comes to church the first Sunday of January. And so what do? We immediately begin following up. Maybe the pastor is shooting a video, text, thanking Fred for coming, letting him know, hey, the last Sunday of the month, we're having our guest party. Fred, we'd love to have you back and just spend time with you. Then you have other means of a follow-up. Maybe it's an email, or someone else for the church reaches out via text. But what are we trying to do? We're using follow-up as a way of helping Fred get down that baseline to get to that connection event that we're going to have. And so what do? What's the next step out of the connection event? Well, just like in baseball, you don't want to just get to first base, then you want to get to second base. And so maybe second base for some of you, it's some type of connection group. Maybe that's a growth track that you do on Sunday mornings before service. Maybe that's, a newcomer's class. Maybe that's some type of orientation or onboarding process that you have. And what do we want to happen there in that second step? Well, we'd love for Fred to receive Jesus and get baptized, or maybe, sign up and get his child dedicated. This is where we may want to introduce him to a little bit more. This is second base is where Fred learns a little bit more about the vision and the values of your church. This is where he learns how he can serve. This is where he begins to find purpose. This is also where he begins to find relationships. Okay, let's always remember, lead with relationships and then connect them into serving opportunities into teams. But maybe this is how that can look. So what empowers Fred to get down from first base to second base? Well, guess what, guys? It's going to be more follow-up. It's going to be more people, maybe somebody that he connected with. Maybe Fred connected really well with Barney at the guest meal or the connection event. Well, guess what? Now Barney is going to be calling Fred and encouraging Fred to take the next step and becoming part of the connection group, and to get Fred from first base to second base. Now, I want to share a best practice with you that I've learned about recently from Hope City Church in Meridian, Mississippi, who's actually doing something really clever, and it's pretty awesome. And I think those of you who've been doing guest meals for a while, and maybe you don't want to do them every month because you only got one or two people and there's not a lot of energy in the room, and it just kind of feels it just doesn't feel full, and then it feels kind of awkward trying to get them from first base to second base. I want to tell you what Hope City's doing, because they've kind of tweaked the whole guest meal approach, but it's beautiful and it's working. And their retention percentages have just gone up dramatically, and it's created more energy in all of their guest meals. They do guest meals the first Sunday of every month, and this is how they do it. So what they would do, if Fred was to come the first Sunday of January, this is what they would do. They would invite Fred that Sunday to stick around for their guest meal. And so what they would do is their guest meal lasts 30, the meal part and the general relationship time takes about 30 minutes. But they're going to have a lot of people in there, and this is why. Because every first-time guest, they invite them to come to 3 guest meals. Now think about it. Think about if you had, let's say you have 15% of your first-time guests come to 3 guest meals in a row, and you're having 3 months worth of guests into every guest meal. That would really raise the energy level and the relational opportunity in those guest meals. And so that's what they do. And after they eat and there's some general talk and relational time, then they have 3 breakouts. And they call it their onboarding system or model. And so Fred would come to their guest meal 3 different times. And the first one he came to, he would go to the breakout that they call Meet the City. And at Meet the City, they're learning about the vision and the values. The pastor's in there kind of telling the story of Hope City. Well, guess what? The next month, Fred's going to be invited to the guest meal again. But this time, during the breakouts, he's going to go to the breakout that's called Know the City. And this is where they're talking about, just what they believe and their values and just ways that they want to reach the community and serve. This is where they're going to get a little bit more in the weeds of what the church is all about. And then the next month, he's going to be invited to the guest meal again, and then he'll go to the breakout that's called Serve the City. And this is where he's given an opportunity to maybe sign up to be baptized, or he could even do that in breakout number 2 or breakout number 1. That's always made available to sign up to be baptized or to maybe participate in a child dedication. But in the 3rd month of the guest meal and the onboarding breakout, Fred, right? Fred is going to learn about teams and how he can be on a team and use his gifts. And so I think it's a brilliant idea. It's working really well for these guys. And we wanted to show that best practice to you because this is what they do with what they call their onboarding system using guest meals, where people come to 3 guest meals. Basically what they've done is they've connected first base and second base together. And they're accomplishing all of that by using the guest meal, keeping the energy level up, and the relational dynamics high, and it's working really well. So I wanted to share that with you guys because I think it could help a lot of us. Now, here's the thing. We just don't want to get people baptized. We do, but we don't want to stop there. We just don't want to get people on a team. That's important and to giving them purpose and helping them find their place and build relationships. But what we also want to do is we want to help them engage in some intentional discipleship that leads into leadership development. Think about it. How many of our churches would be in a stronger position if we were really making more disciples and developing more leaders? I mean, we hear that a lot from pastors. We don't have enough leaders. Well, we've got to learn how to develop the people we have to disciple them into leadership development. So maybe for you, third base looks like Sunday school, or maybe it looks like small groups. Maybe it looks like a freedom group followed by a freedom weekend. A great discipleship resource that we have on our resource page at hgmchurches.com is called Alpha. Man, Alpha has been around for a while. It's been used all over the world as a great discipleship tool that really leads right into leadership development, and it helps people focus on reaching their lost friends and family, which is really awesome. Maybe you've got like an expanded growth track process or a leadership pipeline developed. But the bottom line is we want to help Fred get from out the batter's box to first base, then from first base to second base, which is in some type of connection group where he's learning more, where he can learn how to be assimilated into the body. But then we want to help him get into some intentional discipleship and leadership development. And what fuels that, again, is more follow-up, but it's also a little bit more of an intentional invitation. It's more of an intentional relational invitation, particularly if we want to get Fred in one of our small groups or in Freedom or Alpha in something really focused. And then how do we help Fred get from third base? And obviously, you're going to be at third base for a little while, right? But then to get him all the way around to home plate, well, this is where we have a developed leader and we appoint Fred into a leadership role. So maybe now Fred started out maybe at the third phase, the third onboarding lunch, he got connected to working in the parking lot, holding a sign as a volunteer. Now he's moved to where he's in an intentional discipling environment. He's growing in his faith. And then we're recognizing the leadership potential in him and we're investing in him a little bit more. Maybe pastors, the simple way to do that is to keep an eye out for people. If you have Sunday school, talk to your Sunday school leaders and say, hey, are there any new people who, when they speak up, other people listen? Or who's the person who is always bringing other people with them to church? Pastor, maybe you then create a leadership development group that you begin to invest in them. But then we help Fred move from third base all the way back around to home plate by getting him in a role. So he started out holding a sign that says, welcome home in the parking lot. Now Fred is leading his own team of parking lot people. So it's amazing what we can do, but the goal of this model, the goal of this sheet, and I hope in your peer learning community, now you guys will just have a conversation about what this can look like in your context. I think sometimes we struggle because we don't see how all these pieces interconnect. Now, I had someone say to me, they said, Trey, this feels like you're just helping, you got us just herding cats. I said, well, we're not herding cats, but as shepherds, we herd sheep. Right? It's our job to help move the sheep from one place to another place to another place so they get fed, so they're healthy, so that they grow. And so guys, really, this is just helping us shepherd people in a more effective way to do what? To fulfill the Great Commission of making disciples of all people. Guys, we love you. Listen, if you want to know more about the Hope City onboarding system or to get more of these to help your leadership team, go to hgmchurches.com, hit the resources button, log in. All of this is there for you, plus Freedom, plus links to Alpha. There's some growth track examples there for you. There's tools there for you. And the resource page on hgmchurches.com. We love you. We believe in you. And thank you for letting us go on this journey with you. Bye-bye.